Hello and welcome back to the channel. I am Niladri Mukherjee and I am a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. I practice in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. If you are planning to apply for a visitor visa from any part of Africa, you will probably find this video useful. Why am I stressing specifically on Africa? Because of a couple of reasons. Number one is definitely that's the continent I get most number of clients. And secondly, that's the continent where I incidentally see most number of rejections happen as per as the Canadian tourist visa goes. Hence, I thought why not to talk about this in a little bit detail so that majority of you, could potentially be benefited. So I'm going to talk about 7 or 8 points, and if you have either applied for a visitor visa and got refused, or you're planning to apply for one, both of this segment will find these points quite useful. Number one thing that you should keep in mind is that there is no such thing called Canadian visitor visa on hotel booking. Unfortunately, I see this coming more and more from my clients from Africa, and then where they're saying is that, well, my local consultant have asked me to make hotel bookings, and based on that they have said that if I make a hotel booking, the possibility of the acceptance increases substantially. This is absolutely wrong. The Government of Canada, IRCC, or anywhere in the Immigration Refugee Protection Act or the regulations is asking you to spend money upfront on hotel bookings, on airfare, and etc. to increase the chances of acceptance. Those are not the criteria that's being looked into by IRCC officer while they review the application. So my request to you, my general request to you will be, do not ever pay for your hotel, pay for your flight before you get a decision on your application. It's obviously a different story if that's being sponsored by your company and you cannot really do anything with the fact that the company's policy is to book the flights, to book the hotels for you. That's a different story, but I'm talking about mostly about the individual applicants that are spending money upfront to pay for the hotels and flights to increase their chances. It's a myth. It does not work like that. Please do not do that. So no such thing called Canadian visa on a hotel booking. Don't do that. Secondly, invitation letter. Most of my clients, at least this is from my experience, most of my clients from that come from Africa for consultations, they said that I have enclosed either an invitation letter from a friend or a family member who are either a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, or I'm planning to do so. Do not do that. As a general rule, do not do that. As an adult applicant, please try to understand is that nobody should invite you to visit Canada. It's your inclination to visit Canada. Make it like that, put it like that you are the one that is planning to visit Canada. You are the one that is inclined to visit Canada, rather than there is somebody that is inviting you to Canada. If you do that, the immigration officer most likely is going to refuse your application, stating the standard, boilerplate reasons like balance or probabilities. They don't believe that you will go back to Africa because you have a significant ties to Canada. Do not do that. So no invitation letter. Even if you have your own friends and family, your mom, dad, or like super close relatives, even then do not ask for an invitation letter. There is something else called letter of support. That's a different topic that we can discuss on the consultation. But generally speaking, invitation letter is an absolute no-no for 99.9% of you at least. Thirdly is that the proof of funds. So how much money you should be having for your potential trip to Canada. Now, generally speaking, if you are a single applicant from Africa and if you have like 7, 8,000 or 10,000 Canadian dollars, that's when I see the applications are being accepted. I'm not saying that if you have like $10,000 or $7,000 in your bank account, that will give you a guaranteed acceptance. That's definitely one of the reasons, one of the factors that's being assessed by the officer. There is no such sacrosanct rule. You basically have to prove that you have enough money to pay for the flight, to pay for the ticket, and then obviously pay for the insurance, to pay for the hotel, accommodation, food, etc. for your trip to Canada, and then you have enough money to even go back home, right? So that's the amount of money that you should be having in your bank account when you are submitting this application. The next point is that how long should that money be in your bank account before you submit that application? That money should be on your bank account at the time you submit that application, and unlike express entry system or any other provincial nominee system, you do not have to maintain that amount of money for a specified period of time. So for example, if you have $0 in your bank account And if you receive $50,000 today and submit that application tomorrow, you still have $50,000 in your bank account, provided you are able to prove that $50,000 belongs to you, and why your balance was zero today and is like up by $50,000 tomorrow. As long as rational explanations, logical explanations are made, you are all good. So the short point is that there is no such definite period for which your money has to be there in the bank account. It could be anything, right? The other point is the documentation. The fifth point is documentation. My general advice to you, to all of my friends in Africa, will be take documentation a little bit more seriously. Do not take like a photographs from your smartphone and upload it on the IRCC website. Go to a professional printer or scanning center if you do not have it at home. Make sure that each and every documents, including your passport, your photograph, and all the other details, are being properly scanned, are being properly uploaded and updated, right? It's very, very important. Majority of the times I see some smartphone images and all those things. That's not the way how IRCC accepts documentation. And you really will not see, even understand whether your application is being looked into or not. So we should do our part best. And for that to happen, please make sure you do perfect documentation. And my definition of perfect documentation is not only to submit all the documents. Again, the definition of all is a subjective one. What may be all to you may not be all to somebody else. So that's a different story. But it's not only about submitting everything, it's about submitting everything properly, submitting everything correctly. So make sure you pay super attention to the documentation aspect, because that's everything in a visitor visa application, right? My sixth advice is a clear submission letter or a clear letter of explanation. If you end up working with an RCIC such as myself, I have to write a submission letter to summarize your case and then submit your file. That's my mandatory legal requirement. If you are applying by yourself through GCK, writing an explanation letter to you is being given as a good to have, not a must have. But my suggestion to you is that write an explanation letter. It is not costing you anything additional. It is just costing few more hours of time or few more days of time. Summarize your case properly and make sure that immigration officer, by looking at that explanation letter, or in my case submission letter, understands your profile, your case, everything all at once. These days where the the rejections are very high, these days where the backlog is so very high, to the best of my knowledge, IRCC is looking at the explanation letters first, submission letter first, getting an idea about the case, and then they started processing of the other applications, which makes sense, because you see, why would IRCC officers would go through all the documents and then get an idea, where they're getting that idea instantly by just looking at the submission letter? But majority of the times I see, at least when the clients come to me for after the refusal, is that they haven't submitted either a submission letter nor an explanation letter, right? Make sure you do not miss out on that. Definitely submit an explanation letter if you're doing that application on your own, and make sure it's a crisp, it's a legal explanation letter. Explanation letter is not like writing 5 pages of essay and things like that. It has to talk about immigration law, it has to talk about immigration regulations, and it has to correlate why and how your application is being adhering to the relevant section of the immigration regulation, Immigration Refugee Protection Act of Canada 2002 and its regulation. That's super important. My 7th point would be no web form, right? So after you submit an application, please do not raise a web form immediately asking for an update. Do not do that. That's not been appreciated. The same thing is that make sure before you submit an application, your application is perfect, your application is proper. So once you are done with your entire application, maybe take a day or two to again go through everything, to finalize it, and then press the submit button. It's not a good idea to just submit an application and then sending documents all over again. That, sir, sorry, I missed this document. Sir, sorry, I missed that document. That's not being appreciated. Those applications are typically get rejected, right? So make sure you look into all those factors and then submit a perfect application. So if you follow these points, and now this is from my experience of working with more and more African clients, if you follow these points, probably your application will be successful. Now, getting a visitor visa to Canada is one of the most toughest things, at least has been for 2022, and I would expect the same situation will be there for 2023 as well, because frankly speaking, visitors are not the priority for the government of Canada at this point in time is the students followed by the workers. So, but Canadian visitor visa gives you an enough opportunity, an ample opportunity, because you can then come to Canada, meet employers, and who knows, maybe a job offer for you, right? So I'm not saying that if you come to Canada on a visitor visa, you will like get a job offer and things like that. But practically speaking, employers are looking into foreign applicants in a way more flexible way than they have been in the past, right? So possibility of talking to an employer and getting a job offer is way very high these days as compared to maybe what it was back in the days. So utilize that opportunity most. If you need me to assist you with your visitor visa application, either a fresh application or a rejection, book a consultation. That is a first step, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you and see what needs to be done. Hope this helps. See you guys in the next video. Bye now.